Let's begin inside of C4 game stage. This was in the pack of assets that we had previously migrated into our project. Find it in the maps folder within darts. Before we start, we need to place in the BP player start we created back when we were working on locomotion. I'm going to place mine in front of the podium that will hold our dart. If you have followed along with this learning path, recall that our game mode darts is searching for a BP player start with the same start number using the value of player start number in our game instance darts. If you are finding that you are not spawning to the BP player start, double check that the number here matches the number on the BP player start. Here mine is set to 1, but in the map mine is set to 0, so I would not be spawning to this location. I'm going to set, instead of changing this to 1, I'm going to set the default in game instance to 0 and compile. Test to make sure we are spawning to the correct location. Cool. So, and now I've spawned directly in front of the dart podium. Okay, great. Let's get started. Open the dev folder and create a new actor blueprint. Name it BP Dart and open it. In the top left, click on Add Component. This is going to look a little strange at first because for us to control the throw and maintain the rotation of the dart, we're going to need additional meshes to handle that. The dart mesh itself will be the hero of this blueprint and essentially be what the player sees, but it will not be what we are controlling. Add a static mesh into the components and name it Dart Controller. In the Details panel, select the Static Mesh dropdown and search for Cylinder. Unreal Engine provides a few different assets named Cylinder, and we need to make sure we select the correct one. Mouse over them until you find the one that is from the path engine/basic shapes. Duplicate the Dart Controller and rename it to Dart Rotator. Add a new static mesh component named Dart Hero and set the static mesh to Dart. We need the controller and the rotator to match the basic form of the dart so we can properly interact with it. Change the transform data on Dart Controller to location 4.500, rotation set to 0-90, and scale to 0.02.02.15. Now drag the darts rotator onto the darts controller and press all the default arrows in the transform menu. Drag Dart Hero onto the darts rotator and don't make any transform edits. If you zoom into the Dart Hero asset, you could see why these strange values were chosen for the controller. Set the controller and rotator to hidden in game, as we don't want to see these meshes. With the Dart Hero selected, add a sphere collision component. Set its radius to 4 and the collision preset to block all. Reselect the Dart Hero and create an arrow component. Rotate the arrow to match the direction of our dart asset. And I'm just going to make mine a bit smaller to make it easier to see and work with. Open class settings and set the interface implementation to our pickup actor interface darts, and compile. The logic to pick up assets like this has already been made in BP Pickup Cube. Let's simply copy and paste into our dart blueprint and expand on it from there. Select the two static mesh components that we just pasted in and replace them both with the Dart Controller. And compile. While we're using the basic logic that was already created for BP Pickup Cube, we will be expanding on it to adjust the dart after we throw it to make it appear more like a thrown dart than a tossed cube. We're going to create an event that is looking directly in front of the dart to detect if it hits something, and if so, stop all motion. Drag a reference of BP Dart into our game stage. I'm going to place it right about where I think it should be in the game, so right above the podium here, and I'm going to rotate it a bit to an angle, so it's more, maybe it's a little more interesting to pick up. And I'll go ahead and save this. And let's do a quick test to make sure everything is functioning as intended. So I'm going to go ahead and pick it up, and I can successfully pick it up. This is obviously not how we would hold the dart in the real world, and it's not very realistic. We're going to use a socket that we've placed onto the skeleton we are using named Dart. If you did not implement the provided assets, you'll need to add your own socket to the skeleton. The skeleton we are using can be found in the virtual reality folder, mannequin, character, mesh, and then our skeleton. Look for the one that ends in darts. If you did import the assets, the dart may still be visible in your skeleton. We've added the socket for the dart to the tip of the index finger. Doing so allows us to change the poses of the hand while keeping the dart in a realistic hold. To see a better representation of this, click on the animation on the top right and select Animation Dart Hand Right Holding Dart Basic. This is a much more realistic hold of a dart. To make your own skeletal poses, create a new animation based on the skeleton, or click on the Browse button on the top to navigate to our animation asset. Press Ctrl W to duplicate one of the provided animations and name it Hand Test. Open the skeleton tree. Press pause on the timeline at the bottom. It can also help to move the frame to 0 for simplicity. Make any transform edit you'd like. I'm just going to rotate the thumb out a little bit. Click on the key button at the top and then click Apply. Now we have a new animation we can use in our project. We'll be working more with animations in the next video. Reopen BP Dart. Let's first build the logic to fix our rotation after we throw the dart. Create a custom event named Adjust Rotation from Throw. Now, at the end of event drop, after detach from actor, right-click and search for Set Timer by Event. We're going to use this to call our Adjust Rotation from Throw event 60 times a second, or 1/60. Drag from time and search for the float division node. Divide 1 by 60 and set looping to true. We want to control how long this timer should run, so promote the return value to a variable named Dart Rotation Timer. From the event input, drag backwards and search for Create Event. In this dropdown, select Adjust Rotation from Throw. This is how it knows which function or event should be called. Let's build the rest of the function. Drag in a reference to Dart Controller and create a Set World Rotation node. From Dart Controller, get the component velocity, and from there, drag off the return value and create a make rote from XZ. Leave get component velocity in X, right-click on Z and split the struct pin. Plug in the return value into new rotation. This will be to maintain the rotation of the Dart Controller in the direction it's flying in world space. Drag a reference of Dart Rotator and create a Set Relative Rotation node. Hardcode the new rotation to -180, 90, -180. Let's test this dart again to see how it's working now. There we go. Much more like a dart. Now we need to create a way to stop the dart from moving when it hits something. Create a custom event named Check If Hit Something. Call it right after we set the relative rotation in the Adjust Rotation from Throw event. Add a line trace by channel. We're going to trace from the arrow by dragging out a reference to the Get World location and plugging that result into Start. From arrow, search for get forward vector and multiply that by a float value. Set the float to 5 and add the result to the get world location. Plug the sum into the end input. What we're saying here is take the world location of the arrow, which is attached to the Dart controller, and create a line from that point of 5 units in the forward direction, and if it hits something, we'll decide what to do based on what that something is. From out hit, create a break hit result, and from blocking hit, which will return true if something is now blocking the line, plug this into a branch. So if this is true, we want to stop the motion of the Dart. If it's false, do nothing. Create our last custom event for now, and name it Stop Dart Motion. Call it after true in the check if hit something event. From the Stop Dart Motion event, first drag our reference of the Dart controller and search for set simulate physics and set this to false. Then control drag a reference to the Dart rotation timer and search for pause timer by handle. Then right click and search for set lifespan and set it to 5. This is just used to destroy the Dart after 5 seconds. We need one more way to stop the motion of the Dart, and this will be called if it is thrown but the line trace never sees anything. That would mean you've missed the board altogether. Right-click the sphere collision and under Add Event, select On Component Hit. Drag from the execution pin and search for a cast to static mesh actor. Plug in other actor into the object input, and from the top execution pin, meaning what the sphere has hit is indeed a static mesh actor, call Stop Dart Motion. Navigate to the viewport and drag the arrow forward a bit and compile once more. Let's test this now. There we go. Now it's sticking to our board. We could have also done this by increasing the value inside of the float we created in the line trace. Now our Dart flies like a Dart and sticks into the surface like a Dart. Let's quickly create the spawner for the Dart so we can throw as many as we'd like. Inside of BP Darts, create an event dispatcher named Dart Thrown and call it at the end of the drop function. And compile. Return to the content browser and in the dev folder, create a new actor blueprint named BP Dart Spawner. BP Dart Spawner. We want to place this into the map by replacing the Dart with the BP Dart Spawner. So you can go ahead and select the Dart, and with BP Dart Spawner selected, right-click the Dart and choose Replace Selected Actors with BP Dart Spawner. And save. Open Dart Spawner and add an arrow component named Spawn Transform. Create a custom event named Spawn Dart and call it after begin play. From Spawn Dart, first call a delay of 1 second. After the delay, call a Spawn Actor of Class node. Set the class to BP Dart. Drag out a reference to the Spawn Transform arrow and search for Get World Transform. Split the struct pins on Get World Transform as well as on the Spawn Actor node. Plug in the location and rotation and keep the scale at 1, 1, 1. From the return value, search for Bind Event to Dart Thrown, drag backwards from the event and search for Create Event. In the dropdown, select Spawn Dart. Now the spawner will spawn a Dart right at the start of the game, and after we pick it up and drop it, it will wait 1 second and spawn again. Let's test one more time. So we see our Dart has spawned, and I could pick it up and throw it, wait a second, and a new one is now here for us to use. Next, let's add some life to our VR hands.